Hello, how you doing today, Larry?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Fine. Well, this is Larry Spitali. Larry is our newest Arizona drag racing legend, which you can't be a new legend. I mean, that's something you earn all along for all your racing experience. Larry's also in our Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and he's got, as long as I can remember, he's been out running up and down the track, having a good time and pissing people off by taking the win light. So, we're going to talk about you today, Larry.
Oh, okay.
So, where were you born?
I'm a native. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona at the old Good Samaritan Hospital. I've stayed here my whole life.
So that means you were born after 56 or 57?
I was born in 52.
52? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's pretty good. That's my knowledge. Most people
Back
were born
there,
in
yeah.
St. Joe's at that time.
Yep. I lived on Missouri Avenue. It was actually out of the city limits. Camelback was the city limits when I grew up on Missouri and 7th Avenue.
Wow.
I lived right down just a mile north of where Chuck started his Chuck Speed Center.
So,
When he had the one bay store right there.
so you knew where it was as a kid?
We used to go down there and hang around and watch him do what he was doing with the Googies Willies.
He's a fantastic
Yeah,
guy.
it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how'd you get your love for cars?
My dad owned a gas station. My brother had a tremendous love of cars, but he got married young. And then I saved my money up between my junior and senior year, and I went to Sands to buy a new Chevelle. And I ended up leaving there, and that was in '69. And I left there with a '66 that was sitting on the lot, and it had a bunch of bolt-ons and the headers and the manifolds, and it sounded really cool and everything. And I bought that and drove it home, and the motor blew up 2 weeks after I bought it. So there I was.
It hadn't been driven hard or anything once you owned it, did it?
When I owned it, or before I owned it, it was rode hard and put up wet a lot before I got a hold of it.
So where'd you go to high school?
Central High.
So you were a Bobcat.
I was. Very
Prior
good.
to Central High School.
Yeah. I went to Grandview, so most of my friends went to West, and I ended up going to Central. So, yeah.
So during high school, you had the cool car, or?
Well, we got that motor, and we took it apart and got all the machine work done and everything, and then some guy was going to put it together for us, but turned out he was a weekend drunk, and he never came by to do it. He worked at Midway, where my brother did. So we bought this book. The grocery store had said Chevy High Performance, and we put the motor together. It was 396, and it turned out that it was an accident because it ran really, really well. And then I started cruising Central, and then I started going to the midnights, and we used to race at 7th Street and 7th Avenue north of Bell, and we used to set up at 83rd Avenue and Lower Buckeye. And a guy had built a Christmas tree that worked off a battery and so forth. And sometimes you went from a roll, but that's how we got started.
So you were in the real OG original group,
Yeah.
Street Outlaw guys in Arizona.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to go to Carnation Milk there at Indian School in Central, and a guy there would be handing out a flyer as to where the races were. So, and the sheriffs were pretty cool. If they'd come, they'd just break you up back then. They didn't haul you away. So, it was pretty good stuff. And we were out nowhere. There was nothing out there where we were at. So it worked out pretty good.
When did you realize that you became more of a drag strip guy than a street racing guy?
Well, we were at 83rd Avenue Lower Buckeye one night, and I had a Arizona brake and clutch pressure plate in my car because it's all I could afford at the time. And I blew the clutch, went through the hood, cut the headers in half, did a lot of damage to the car. Fortunately, not to either one of us. I was racing Don Woodard. He had a camera on the street that I was racing, and I was actually ahead of him. And then so I towed it into the shop, and after I got beat to a pulp by the old man for drag racing, we started buying parts, and I took a few months to put it back together, and I put a gear in it. I had a 373 gear in it on the street, and so we put 513s in it, took it to the racetrack, and that was the disease right there. First pass down the track at Mel Larson's, and it was time to go.
So Mel Larson's was the Phoenix Dragway, Speed World.
Yeah.
All the iterations, but that was your first drag strip.
That was my first drag strip. In fact, Mel's girlfriend lived right next door to my brother on Coulter and 15th Avenue, and got to know Mel really well, and that's where we started. And then I went on from there and raced the Chevelle, and then we couldn't go fast enough to run the numbers, but back then you had to run your whatever your weight bracket was. So D stock was, I think, 8 pounds per cubic inch, and we couldn't run the number that other cars were, but so you had to run that index on the weekends. Well, when everybody was out of town, we could win because nobody was there that I had to lose to. So, and then I got a hold of, I bought the Camaro from Dwayne Jacobson and John Yale had bought Watley's old car. They raced it for a little while, and then I bought that. And then I bought a giant motor from Joe Rundle. And then we put that in the car, and that car went 10-0s, and it was pretty fast for what we were doing.
Is that the car you think made you arrive as a racer? I mean, did we notice that you had a quick car all of a sudden?
Yeah, that car was fast, and we were running. There was a match race group in town. It was 7 pounds per cubic inch. You could run tunnel ram 2 4-barrels and so forth, and it was heads-up racing. So I was able to win a lot of races, not going as fast, but able to. My reactions were a lot stronger than everybody else's. So there's a guy in Tucson, Gerald John, had a GD Hemi. He was fast. He was 3/4 tenths faster than I was, but I could always leave on him and get there before he did. So it worked out really well, but that's how I figured out that maybe I had a pretty good deal going, and I was pretty efficient with the 4-speed. So I was doing that when the Watleys approached me.
So tell me, before the Watleys approached you, tell me about the Watley brothers. They're definitely, you and them are associated in a lot of people's minds, you know.
Basically just knew them from buying the car, and I didn't, anytime they didn't race locally much, but when they did show up, I mean, I didn't like them being there because the car was really fast, and nobody could beat them when they were in town. The car worked really well, but they never got anybody in it that was really consistent at racing the car. So they approached me one day about driving a car, and then we went to Tucson and ran American Hot Rod Association, and they called them regionals. And we went down there and won that first race, and so they told me I could drive the car as long as I wanted to. And then we went on from there. Shortly after that, we went to Fremont and won Fremont. And then we did very well at Orange County that same year. So we chased it really hard in '73, and then Rundle ended up winning the national title. We ran into a cylinder head problem from a machinist, and we had water coming out the header, so we lost some points there, and that cost us. So we ended up, '74, we won the world championship with that car.
So what... You went from a local racer,
yes,
to all of a sudden you were going to out of town to go races.
Yes, I was living the dream.
What was your first non-Arizona where you went out of town? Not Tucson, but where did you go when you first left the state to go racing?
Well, I would say the first one was when we went to Independence, Missouri.
Wow.
I remember that well. And then Boise, Idaho. I remember my sister was getting married, and they said, go to the wedding, and then we'll leave. Because we had to be in Boise the next morning. So Bill drove all night straight through, and we rolled into Boise, and we won that race after driving all night.
And it was all AHRA stuff?
That was all AHRA is what it was, yeah. We never ran any. It was all AHRA out here is what it was then, during the 70s.
They're great sportsman programs they had.
I met Bill New at that point, and then jumping way ahead, I ended up going to... in 2009, I went to Boise to run the Night Fire Nationals. They've still run it, and I won a race up there. And I said, you handed me a check in '74 was the last time I was here, and we talked and so forth. So I had a good time. So he had passed away here about 5 years ago, but it was great seeing him again and talking with him.
The New family is one of the icon families.
They are. They're a premier family.
Yeah.
They run a good show. The track is awesome, and can't say enough about them. Yeah, good track.
So you're Independence, Missouri?
Independence, Missouri, and then we went to Wichita, and then we went to Boise.
What did you think the first time you rolled into a drag strip in another state? Were you nervous at all, or?
I was not nervous at all. I felt like I had the greatest car in the world after driving my stuff and then getting in the Watley car. That was a Cadillac.
Yeah.
So, man, that car was all put together right. It just needed to be driven right.
It wasn't trying to hurt you like your car did.
No.
Yeah.
Well, a funny thing, the first night we went to Tucson, I was sitting in the staging lanes, and Bill said, I'm going to go. Me and Stan like to watch the finish line. I said, aren't you going to stay here? I'm driving your car. He says, oh, no. He says, I'm not worried about you driving my car. He says, my car goes straight. He says, we used to take bets when you left the starting line, what direction you were going to go. But I always drove through it. I was able to, I guess, Jim and I were talking earlier, when you think you're okay, you just keep going. You just keep driving, So I did. That's how I drove my car. But I didn't have to do that at Watley's. It went straight, so I could concentrate on repeating.
How long did you drive for them?
I drove last of '72, '3, '4, and '75. We won the Winter Nationals. They moved them to Tucson, and then Bill, he actually got married. And when he got married, he quit racing. So he had built a Vega. We were going to run a hot rod in the Vega, and he sold that car to Gordy Rivera, is where that car went. So, and then I was on my own again. So then got married, raised my kids, and I actually didn't race for 20 years.
So you took a break.
I took a break, and I had an auto repair center at 51st and Camelback, Ramsey Auto Center. And one day a kid came in there with a 69 Camaro that he'd been messing with, and he needed to sell it, and I bought it. And then I took it to the track, and he had some nice stuff on it, and it worked pretty good. I went out there and raced it, and I thought, well, this is kind of fun, you know. And I went out, and finally, I didn't go to any races at all. And then I went out when Eaton was promoting the Winter Nationals at not the Winter Nationals, but at Firebird. And I saw guys red lighting in the finals and semifinals and stuff, and I said, geez, you go that far and you red light. I mean, there's got to be a better way to do it. I think I can still do that. So
you're bitten.
But first time I got in the car, it had a power glide in it with a tranny brake, and I said, what is this? You know, I didn't have a clue. You mash the throttle and let go of the button.
There was no third pedal in the car for you.
No third pedal. There was a third pedal in my Camaro when I first got it, because it used to be a 4-speed car. But I found my... So then I decided I was going to do this, and a friend of mine called me and he said, before you spend all the money to cut up that 69 and tub it and stuff, you might want to go down and look at this car sitting down at Desert Sports Center. So I went down there, and Dave had that black cherry sitting in the back room. George Husky had traded it in for an electric boat for where he lived. And it had been sitting for a couple of years, and I went and looked at it. It was a full chassis car that Howard Smith had built, H&S race cars, and it had all the right stuff in it. It's just outdated. So they sold it to me for a song and dance, and I took it back, and it had a tired motor in it. And the only person I knew at the time was Scott Shafroff from when we toured, because I met Scott. He used to pit with us. So I called Scott and talked to him personally, and he says, yeah, I'll send you a 383 short block. So he sent me a 383, and then a friend of mine here, Ed Brunig in town, sent my heads over to Doug Moore in California, and he did my heads for me. And then the car ran 990s when I got done with it, and I won a small fortune with that car, the Black Cherry. It couldn't be more
it was
thrilled.
a well-known car even before you bought it.
Yeah, it was. And it was beautiful, you know, and then it started going, and then I got this bright idea that all the money races, so I started racing all these money races because that was really the hot setup. And
so what money races?
The first one was Tucson. AJ Ash and George Montgomery, the guy who started the Million, were promoting a $10,000 a day race in Tucson. So I took the car down there and I won a day out of the blue. I go down there, the car wasn't even lettered. And everybody, who's this guy? You know, they didn't know who I was, but I did really well and I won the race. And then I thought, well, this is really cool. Why race on the weekends when you can follow these money races around? Now there's money races everywhere, and they're paying even more than that. So then there was Vegas, that every Thanksgiving paid $5,000 a day. Boise, Idaho paid $5,000 a day. And then you could go farther east if you wanted to travel, and basically no rules. Bring your car and race and run the number and do your best and win the race. Well, then I got the bright idea, well, maybe it's time to get a dragster because it's getting harder and harder to beat these guys.
So we were talking earlier before we started videoing here, and you were the guy who said no dragsters. And you said, what, you never sit in the middle of a car or center steer?
Yep, I said it forever and ever, and then I had a chance to, a friend of mine offered, he was in trouble with the government taxes and stuff, and he said he needed to get rid of the car. I bought the car for a song, and I turned to a dragster, and everybody looked at me like I had three eyes all of a sudden.
What year was this approximately?
That was in 2012. I bought the dragster. And the mistake I made was selling the Camaro. I had it sitting in storage, but a guy came along in 13 and bought it from me. So I raced the dragster. And then they changed the format, and then they shortened the track, and all the money races became eighth mile races, and then the dragsters raced the dragsters, and the door cars raced the door cars. Well, that took the advantage away of owning a dragster because I'd rather be in a door car anyway. So I did that for 5 years, and was putting down 4,000 and 5,000 packages in the eighth mile and losing. You know, because one guy came over and said, well, I heard you were really good on the tree, so I dumped the delay out of my box. He goes triple and runs his number with a 1. I load my car with a 6-pack, and I'm done. So I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm selling the car, I'm building a door car. So I got another door car. And that's when I got rid of the dragster. So that was a Monza I bought from a gentleman here in town named Joe Esposito. It was a super gas car. and we reworked it and put a big motor in it, and they went 530s in the eighth mile, and it would go 830s in the quarter mile. It was a really good car, tube chassis car.
So you still chasing the money races when you do it, or?
Yeah, in fact, I sold the Monza because I really didn't have enough room in it, and I've got a Camaro that I'm finishing up now. And then the first race will be in Tucson. Chris Forsyth is a well-known racer around, and he promotes the West Coast bracket races. And again, they're eighth mile, and same format.
What's your challenge to eighth mile versus quarter mile?
Eighth mile, you don't get to play as many games in the eighth mile. I mean, you can hold numbers and stripe race and do all kinds of things in the quarter mile. The eighth mile is you got to live on the tree. You got to hit the tree.
You got to race the track,
and then you got to race the track's usually pretty strong eighth mile. You don't have to worry about the track being soft, but the finish line stuff is I think it's almost a tool to carry nitrous to stripe race. So I have nitrous on my cars just to stripe race, just on demand with a button. So a lot of guys like to hold numbers. They'll come down and put a wheel on. You can just stick it right back in front of them with the bottle.
So you were in it and you got out of it for 20 years for your family.
Yeah.
Not uncommon.
Raised the kids.
Yep. Not uncommon. I went about that timeline with a race car, not owning a race car myself.
Right.
Yeah.
My poor wife, I went to her in '99, and I said, the kids are going, do you mind if I drag race a little bit? And, well, I don't care, I ain't going to take anything away from what's going on. She had no idea what poor. I thank her for putting up with it all these years. So, but she's never, she's always been behind me. She can't go to the races.
What's her name?
Her name is Chris. And she's awesome about putting up with the racing. But she does not anything she can do.
So you married up?
We married up big time. We've been married. We'll have 43 years here in 2 months.
Congratulations!
So thank you very much. And she put up with all my racing. So it's been good. So we've done very well.
During the time of all the racetracks you've been to, where's the racetrack that you probably said, I wish I would not have gone to that track?
Not have gone?
Yeah. I mean, a place you raced that you said that was not a good place to race. We talk about good decisions and bad decisions as a race car driver. And
I have been really blessed with my abilities. Every track I've been to, at one time or another, I won a race there. I don't have any bad memories of any tracks. I was thankful of the one time I left the surface was beeline, and the walls were further back from the track, so I was able to slide the car down the dirt and not hit anything. And there's one other time I left the track. Final round at Tucson at the Winter Nationals of '75. When I came out of the water box and I stopped the car, I had brake pressure and then it went to the floor. So I staged the car with no brakes. And I figured with the Doug Nash, I'd figure out a way to stop the car at the other end. I wasn't going to quit. So I won the round, and that was the final, and I headed off into the desert down there. I knew there wasn't anything other than desert, and I just started swerving the car and sashaying it and shifting it down. And you can shift a Doug Nash. You can downspeed
I was looking at
it.
you like, how do you downshift a Doug Nash?
But you have to do it like you upshift it. You have to cram it and shove it. And I'm down there covered in dirt and so forth, and Bill came down and he goes, what are you doing out there? I said, I don't have any brakes. Well, when did you find that out? I said, when I staged it. And he just shook his head. We had to wash the car before we took pictures. So otherwise, I've been very fortunate. I haven't hit any walls or wrecked any cars or been upside down or anything like that. So,
amazing story. So, yeah, I see you from time to time at our local cruise night on Saturday night, and you have some. Tell us, you have a nice street car.
I have a '66 SS 396 that I've restored. It's regal red, a black vinyl top. It's a numbers matching car. It's a real car. And it was just something I had in high school and my first race car, and I had a chance to buy it in '98. And
was it the same car? Or?
No, it was a wreck. It was the only. I mean, the body wasn't wrecked, but it was 3 different colors: primer and yellow and red and gray, and that other primer color, red primer color, and it ran on about 5 cylinders. All the bushings in the rear end were out of it.
This is what you were doing when you weren't drag racing.
So I started playing. I was going to restore that car. Yeah. And then right after that, I found the Black Cherry, and then so I put the Chevelle on the back burner, and I finally finished the Chevelle for real in '06 is when I finally finished it.
So along the way, we all have stories about we we get to where we're at a lot of what we've done ourselves, but there are people who open doors for you or mentored you. There are people along the way that, you know, when you're first getting going, you could go to and ask a question, or you look. Who did you look up to back when you started racing?
Oh boy,
Because I know a lot of people look up to you from your successes in racing.
thank you. God, I met so many people. I can't say enough about the drag racers. I don't have anybody into. Joe Rundle taught me a lot about the 4-speed because he couldn't shift one. He couldn't shift a T10 until Doug Nash came about. Then he was, you know, and a lot of guys became pretty good racers after that. But other than the confidence that Bill had in me, because we basically traveled together. Stan flew in a lot, but Bill Watley, you know, he had all the confidence in the world in me. And then his dad was a great guy, D. Watley, and he would talk to me when he was in town. And one of the things that D said was, whenever you're getting ready to make a decision, you're not really sure the answer, always go with your first thought. He said like that. So I've always kind of made that a rule. So don't second guess yourself. When I was in Bakersfield in '06, I won the Western Division, Division 7 Summit Finals in '06, but we got rained one day, and I was sitting there inside the trailer, and we were sitting around talking and having a beer, and I saw this guy's trailer. He put the door up, and on the back of it, it said, "Inside this trailer is a disease there's no cure for," and it's true. It's true. Every time I think I'm done, you know, and I didn't fit in the Monza very well, I sold it, and it wasn't 30 days later, I was talking to my wife. I said, I got to get another car. I'm not done. So I found a Camaro. So I'm painting it right now, and then I'll be out with it. So
tell us about tell us about the car.
It's a full chassis car, strut front end, lamb brakes all the way around. It's got the new MSD grid ignition system in it. It's got all the right stuff. It's a 540-inch big block. It goes 550s in the 8th mile. It's extremely well built. I knew the guy who had it. And his dad built it, and his dad didn't like driving it because it was too fast. And so they put him in a small block Chevelle, and then they put the Camaro up for sale. And before it even got for sale, a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I know you're looking. You might want to check this car." And the only thing bad about it was the paint was pretty rough. So I brought it home and painted it. So
your family involved with the racing?
No.
Just
No.
They go ahead, Dad.
My wife can't take the during qualifying and everybody's getting their time runs and stuff. She can't take that downtime. She's just ready to go. She wants to do things, you know. So she just says, "Go have a good time. See when you get home." So nobody's in it.
Yes.
My grandson is a champion motocross racer. He's 9. He's won several state championships already. He has a chance to get in a mini sprint. I've been trying to encourage him to get inside of a cage because he's already broken a collarbone and messed his wrists up once, and he had a concussion once already. So motocross, all they're going to do is jump farther and go faster. So I'm trying to get him in a car. So
when they're young, though, they're fearless. When you start,
I know that.
Even when they get hurt, they go, "Okay,
Yep.
that won't happen again."
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no good.
No, to do
not many
something
people
else.
start motocross when they're 50 years old.
Do something else next time. And I know guys that do that, and it takes so long to heal. You know, as we get older, you just got to be careful and not get hurt. So,
Who is your arch nemesis in racing?
arch
Who
nemesis.
would you like to beat?
I really got a Rod. I remember he's Fuller. Rod Fuller was the 1990 bracket racer of the decade, and I raced him in Vegas, and I raced him a different way every time I raced him, and he gave me the compliment and told me that I was the only guy that he ever took numbers out of his delay box for, because he knew I was coming off the line. And I beat him like 6 times all one weekend, and we became really good friends after that. But he just couldn't believe it. He says, "Why aren't you out here?" I says, "I got a business to run. I can't come out here and do this full time." But he was not really a nemesis. Just that beating him made me confident and I knew what I was doing. Absolutely, yeah. And then there's been some other ones that I've.
So people don't understand this on these money races. It's, you know, with the internet and all the social media now, we can follow them a lot more. We're more aware of them, but there's a whole group of people. That's what they do full time.
Right. Right. Now, like you can actually, if you sit down, you could actually run a schedule. And there's guys that run the bracket race schedule. Like you can start in Tucson, and then April in Vegas is the million. They'll pay the winner $250,000, $300,000 to the winner. So I mean, that's
You racing that this year?
yeah, definitely. And then the other 3 days pay $30,000 a day, and it's just the same thing you do on a weekend. You just go out there and do your job and get through the round.
Still working full time?
No, I had a young man came and offered mine. We sold the business, and we retired March 1st after 43 years. 42 years. We were into our 43rd year when we did that. So we're done.
So it sounds like playing with cars has been really good to you.
I've had a really good time with cars. I've bowled all my life, but the cars have they've always been there. I love bowl. I love to bowl, but I love to race the car, and I still do.
Well, we know you must love bowling because we
I
tried to
know.
film you earlier, and
I
you had a
know.
bowling tournament you had to be at. So,
did.
so if you're passionate for that, it's like it's drag racing. People probably don't like to bowl against you either.
It's a great sport, and a lot of good people, just like drag racers are. And I just hope that as I continue with the drag racing, I'm confident I can still hit the tree. I'm still grouping the passes, and I'm looking forward to that, especially this car.
So you're an AHRA national champion.
I am.
You're an Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame member,
Yes.
and now you're an Arizona Drag Racing legend.
And I appreciate that. I don't know how to thank you guys enough for giving me the opportunity.
Well, Larry, we've had a great time and appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for all the entertainment you've given everybody watching you race, because you're always something. You were the guy to watch in the door slammer.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks, Chris. Thanks, Bill, and thank you, everybody else. I appreciate it.
Thank you.